Not this time.
Pressure dropping.
Not pity, just another chance.
The sickness here isn't in the body, it's in the price tag.
Not again. One last time.
Tomorrow will be better.
This compression right here is causing the restriction. We need to address this immediately.
And the flow down here.
They called him a monster. His mother called him a miracle. In a forgotten town of cracked streets and quiet prayers, a boy was born with a mark the world refused to understand. They said it was nothing, just a birthmark, until the pain began to grow faster than his body could. For years, his mother worked through every night believing love could be stronger than medicine. But one night, under the hospital's harsh white lights, that love would be tested in ways no parent should ever face. This is the story of what happens when the system turns away and a mother refuses to. If this story reaches you, if you've ever loved someone the world called impossible, subscribe and tell me in the comments, what does healing mean to you when it's not just the body that's broken? The sun in Riverside, Ohio doesn't rise so much as it leaks through the haze. It's a tired light, the kind that touches the cornfields without ever warming them. The old freight line hums in the distance, dragging the day awake. At the very edge of town, where River Road curls into gravel and dust, stands a house with chipped blue paint and a mailbox that says Miller number 47. Inside, the world moves slower. Sarah Miller. 38 folds napkins in half light. The hum of the refrigerator fills the silence that used to belong to laughter. 2 jobs have stripped the color from her voice waitress by day-night clerk at a 24-hour urgent care. Her hair is pinned back with the same clip she wore to high school. It has outlived her youth. On the kitchen table sits her old laptop, the screen cracked at the corner. She types with 2 fingers, how to treat vascular malformation, no insurance. The search engine loads a page full of smiling doctors she'll never meet. A pop-up flashes. Schedule your free cosmetic consultation. She slams it shut. From the next room comes the scratch of a pencil. Her son, Eli, 14, is drawing again. The boy rarely speaks, but when he does, his voice sounds like he's apologizing for using it. Half his face is shaped by the tangle of blood vessels he was born with, not grotesque, not beautiful, just human in a way that people refuse to see. Sarah stands at his door. She doesn't knock. She watches him sketch a tree with long, crooked roots. The branches reach upward but never find the sun. "You should sleep," she says. "I'm fine," Eli murmurs. I like nights better." She knows what he means. Nights don't stare back. Later, when the house goes still, Sarah sits on the porch with a cup of cold coffee. A single streetlight flickers outside, on, off, on, like a heartbeat running out of rhythm. She looks down the empty road and whispers to no one, "Tomorrow will be better." But tomorrow in places like Riverside is just another version of today. They say this is the land of the free, the narrator's voice would say. But sometimes freedom costs a copay you can't afford. And inside that quiet house, a boy keeps drawing trees that never touch the light. It happens on a Tuesday, the kind of day that feels half-finished. The wind drags dust across River Road, and the sound of a distant train rolls through like a memory that refuses to fade. Sarah is outside sweeping the porch when she sees it, a white van slowing near the mailbox, the words, "Healing Hands," foundation printed in fading blue. The engine hums to a stop. A young woman steps out, maybe mid-20s, dressed in a navy jacket with a small stethoscope pin. Her name tag catches the sunlight. Anna Carter, Community Outreach Nurse. She's smiling the way people do when they're nervous, but trying not to show it. Mrs. Miller, she calls voice gentle. "I'm Anna. I work with Healing Hands. We're doing free medical evaluations for kids in the area." Sarah straightens, wiping her hands on her jeans. "We've been through that before," she says. "You come, take a photo, make promises, and then the letters start coming, bills, not hope." Anna's smile softens. "I understand, but this is different. We just want to talk. No paperwork, no billing, I promise." From behind the curtain, a flicker of movement, Eli watching. His fingers tighten around the window frame. Anna glances at the door, her tone careful. "I read your son's case in the county registry. I know it's been years since his last checkup. I'm not here to sell anything. I just want him to see that there are still people who care." Sarah sighs. The words sting because they sound like mercy. "We don't need pity, Miss Carter." Anna shakes her head. "Not pity, just another chance." There's a silence between them, long enough for the wind to find its way through the trees. Finally, Sarah steps aside. "You can come in, but just for coffee." Inside, the house smells faintly of laundry detergent and worry. Anna sets her clipboard on the table, avoiding the stack of unopened envelopes marked urgent. She looks around, family photos stopped before Eli turned 8. Eli stays hidden behind the doorway, watching the visitor with cautious curiosity. Anna pretends not to notice speaking to Sarah, but loud enough for him to hear. Sometimes she says softly, "Kids like Eli can have smaller surgeries first. There's a surgeon in Cincinnati, Dr. Henry McKinnon, retired now, but he consults for cases that hospitals won't take." Sarah gives a hollow laugh. "We don't even have gas money to get to Cincinnati." Anna nods, then slides a card across the table. "Just keep this. Sometimes hope knocks quietly." She finishes her coffee and leaves without pushing further. The van drives away, the white paint flashing once in the dying light. Eli steps out from the hallway and picks up the card she left behind. His thumb traces the logo, 2 open hands forming a heart. He doesn't say a word, but something in his chest stirs faint and unfamiliar. For the first time in years, he feels like someone out there might be looking for him. That night, after Eli has gone to bed, Sarah pulls down a shoebox from the top of the fridge. The lid is worn soft from years of touching the edges, taped twice to keep it from falling apart. Inside, paper after paper, the same cruel chorus stamped in red, "Denied. Not covered. Out of network." She lays them out across the kitchen table like old family photos. Letters from hospitals she's never seen, bills larger than her yearly income. The words blur until they don't look like English anymore, just a language built from shame. She remembers the first one. Eli was 3, his face already swelling. The pediatrician said it wasn't urgent. "Just cosmetic, ma'am. He'll grow into it." But he didn't grow into it. He grew around it, learning how to hide, how to turn away when kids stared too long. Sarah picks up a letter from St. Jude's. It's dated 8 years ago. "Your child's case does not meet the criteria for immediate surgical intervention. Please consult your insurance provider for alternative options." She'd called them desperate. The woman on the phone had been polite, robotic. "Ma'am, our hands are tied," Sarah had whispered, "then untie them," but no one did. Now the papers fill the table like ghosts that refuse to leave. She opens the window for air, but the wind only scatters the bills across the floor. The word, "denied," flutters like confetti at a funeral. Outside, the night hums with the sound of trucks heading to places where people can afford better lives. She leans her forehead against the glass and closes her eyes. "They say America has the best doctors," the narrator would murmur, "but the sickness here isn't in the body. It's in the price tag." Sarah gathers the papers back into the box, presses the lid down tight, and hides it under the sink. Then she whispers a prayer to no one in particular. The kind of prayer that doesn't ask for a miracle, just for a break. 3 days pass before Anna Carter sits at her desk in the Healing Hands office, a converted church on the edge of downtown. The stained glass windows still catch the morning light, scattering it across the floor in broken colors. She opens her laptop, hesitates, then begins to type. Dear Dr. McKinnon, my name is Anna Carter. I know you haven't practiced in years, but there's a boy here in Riverside who reminds me why people like you became doctors in the first place. Her fingers move faster now, guided by something larger than obligation. She writes about Sarah, the mother who works double shifts. About Eli, the boy who sketches trees without sunlight. About the box of denial letters sitting under their sink. He's 14. The tumor's spreading. They've called it cosmetic for over a decade. But what's cosmetic about a child afraid to be seen? She pauses, rereads, then adds one more line. If anyone could help him, it would be you. She hits send before she can second-guess it. Miles away, in a quiet apartment overlooking the Chicago River. Dr. Henry McKinnon sits by the window with a glass of water and a pill he's been meaning to take. His hands are steady, but the scars of his career are not. The inbox pings. He opens the email, scans the words, then the attached photo, a boy's face half in shadow, half in light. There's a clarity in the boy's gaze that cuts through the noise. He exhales slowly. The rain begins to patter against the glass, soft and rhythmic. Not again, he murmurs to himself. I said I was done. But he doesn't close the laptop. Instead, he leans back and stares at the ceiling where the city lights flicker faintly through the rain. On his desk, a small frame holds an old photograph. A young patient who didn't make it in time because the insurance company had said pending approval. McKinnon rubs his temples. Not again, he says, but this time it sounds less like refusal and more like a promise. He reaches for his phone and dials a number from memory. Anna Carter. This is Dr. McKinnon. Tell the boy's mother I'm coming to Ohio, one last time. The wind carried the sound of a car long before it reached the house. Sarah looked out through the curtain. An old sedan crawled down River Road, its tires crunching over gravel. When it stopped, a man stepped out, gray hair, straight posture, and a face worn not by age, but by memory. Dr. Henry McKinnon held a leather briefcase that looked older than Eli. Sarah opened the door halfway. You must be the doctor. Just Henry today, he said, smiling. His voice had the steadiness of someone who'd seen too much and learned to speak softly because of it. Inside, the house smelled of coffee and detergent. McKinnon placed his coat over the chair, glancing at the faded photographs on the wall. Birthdays, Christmas mornings, all from years ago. Where's Eli? He asked. Sarah nodded toward the hallway. He doesn't like new people. McKinnon pulled a small sketch pad from his briefcase and laid it on the table beside a pencil. Then let's not talk about doctors. Let's talk about drawings. Minutes passed. A quiet shuffle. Then from the shadows, Eli appeared, hoodie up, sleeves pulled over his hands. He moved like someone expecting to be hurt. McKinnon didn't reach out. You draw, Eli nodded. Show me. The boy hesitated, then sat across from him. He flipped open the pad and began to sketch a tree, crooked and thin, its roots reaching deep into a darkness that seemed to swallow everything else. When he was done, McKinnon studied it carefully. That's not a monster. Eli's brow furrowed. Everyone says it looks wrong. The doctor shook his head. Wrong things grow too. That's how you know they're alive. Something shifted in the room, a silence no longer heavy but listening. Sarah stood in the doorway watching. She hadn't seen Eli talk this long to anyone in years. McKinnon closed the sketchbook gently. If you let me, I'd like to help you, Eli. Not because you need to be fixed, but because you deserve to breathe without hiding. Eli stared at him uncertain. Then, almost whispering, Does it hurt? McKinnon smiled faintly. Healing always does, but it's a good kind of pain. The afternoon light slipped across the table, landing on Eli's face, half shadow, half sun. For the first time, neither side looked wrong. The next morning, the world felt suspended in fog. Sarah brewed coffee that no one drank while McKinnon spread scans and papers across the kitchen table. The blue veins on the X-ray glowed like rivers under a map. This is Eli's vascular malformation, McKinnon explained, tapping the film gently. It's benign, but growing. If left untreated, it can press on nerves, restrict blood flow, and eventually impair his vision. Sarah stared at the ghostly image. It's been there since he was born. Doctors said it was cosmetic. McKinnon's jaw tightened. Cosmetic is what they call it when they don't have funding. If they'd done an MRI when he was a toddler, we could have slowed it down with a simple embolization. He looked up, meeting her eyes. When's the last time he had a checkup? She laughed bitterly. Checkups cost $150 we don't have. I work nights just to keep the lights on. The doctor nodded slowly, like someone cataloging a tragedy he's seen too many times. I'll take his case through the foundation. No charge. Sarah froze. Why? You don't even know us. Because I do, McKinnon said softly. I've met too many mothers who think they failed when really it was the system that did. Eli sat quietly at the edge of the table, sketchbook on his knees. Will it fix my face? He asked. McKinnon turned toward him. Maybe not all of it, but it'll stop the pain. It'll give you back the parts you haven't met yet. Sarah's eyes brimmed. And if something goes wrong... He sighed. There are always risks, but not doing it, that's the biggest one. The room fell silent except for the ticking clock on the wall. Finally, Sarah reached for the pen. Her hand trembled as she signed the consent form. The sound of ink on paper felt heavier than thunder. Anna, who'd been standing in the doorway, smiled gently. You don't have to be brave, Sarah. Just willing. Sarah looked at her son, his face half covered by hair eyes filled with cautious hope. Then I guess she whispered, we're willing. Outside, the fog lifted. Somewhere down the road, a train passed, carrying its whistle through the open air, the sound of something beginning. The hospital in Cincinnati smells like bleach and borrowed time. The halls shine too bright and the air too cold, like the building itself is afraid of what happens inside it. Sarah walks beside the gurney, one hand on the metal rail, the other clutching Eli's fingers. He's wearing a gown 2 sizes too big, his hair sticking to his forehead. The nurse wheels him through the double doors marked surgical wing. Above the lights hum like trapped bees. Dr. McKinnon walks ahead, quiet, focused. To Sarah, he looks like a man trying to keep a promise the world keeps breaking. At the doorway, she stops. Can I stay? He shakes his head softly. Not in there, but I'll come back out with him. I swear. Eli looks up, eyes wide under the fluorescent glow. Mom. She bends down, pressing her forehead to his. You're okay, baby. Just take a nap, all right? I'll be right here when you wake up. Then the doors close, and she's left with the silence of the waiting room, the low hum of vending machines, the shuffle of sneakers on tile, the endless buzz of distant machines measuring other people's chances. Inside the operating room, the world becomes a heartbeat. The steady beep of the monitor, the hiss of oxygen, the murmur of nurses moving like ghosts. McKinnon stands under the surgical light. Scalpel, he says, his voice calm but taut. The assistant hands it over without a word. He works carefully, each incision a prayer whispered in sterile air. Beads of sweat form at his temples. Beneath the hum of machines, he hears echoes of another boy's voice, the one he lost years ago to an insurance delay. His hands tremble for half a second. Then steady. Not this time, he mutters. Not today. The clock ticks. The monitor hums. Time folds into breath and precision. Suddenly, the beeping falters 1-2. Then a flat tone, long and merciless. Pressure dropping, a nurse calls, heart rate falling. McKinnon's mind goes quiet. Epinephrine. Now, the syringe plunges. Nothing. Come on, kid, he whispers. Breathe. Another second. Another eternity. Then a sound, faint, fragile, beep, beep, beep. The nurses exhale at once, like the room itself had been holding its breath. McKinnon leans back, eyes closed, whispering, We got him. Outside, Sarah looks up from her cold coffee. The hallway lights flicker once a single pulse through the glass door. She doesn't know what it means, but she smiles through tears anyway. Narration drifts in like wind through a chapel window. Some battles aren't fought against death, but against delay, against the clock, against a system that makes you prove you're worth saving. and under the white, merciless light, Eli's heart keeps beating. When Eli wakes, the world feels far away. Everything hums softly. Machines, footsteps, the low murmur of hospital life moving without hurry. The ceiling above him glows white, too white, and for a moment he wonders if he's still dreaming. There's a gentle weight on his hand. Sarah. Her head rests near the edge of his bed, her fingers tangled in his like a lifeline. The lines around her eyes look deeper, but her breathing is steady. Mom. His voice is small, hoarse, uncertain. Her eyes open instantly as if she'd never really been asleep. Hey, sweetheart. She brushes his hair back carefully, afraid to hurt him. You scared me half to death. He tries to speak again, but his throat aches. She offers him water. The straw trembles between his lips. Did it work? He asks. Sarah smiles, though tears glint at the edges of her lashes. It worked enough. You're here. That's all that matters. Across the room, Dr. McKinnon stands by the window, hands in the pockets of his white coat. He's been there a while, watching the sunrise spill over the rooftops. When he turns, his voice carries the softness of exhaustion. He's going to be fine, Sarah. The next steps will take time, but the worst is over. She nods, too overwhelmed to speak. Later, Anna arrives with a small vase of flowers, wild ones, the kind you pick from the side of the road. She places them by the window where light can reach them. She opens her tablet and begins typing a post for the Foundation's blog. The title appears slowly across the screen, When Medicine Fails the Poor. The first sentence reads, Sometimes healing begins not with a scalpel, but with someone willing to listen. As the monitor beside Eli keeps its steady rhythm, beep, 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 the morning light spills across the room like a promise. By the time spring returned to Ohio, the snow had melted into soft rivers that carved through the backyards and carried the scent of earth. The world looked alive again. So did Eli. He still moved slowly, a stiffness in his jaw, a faint pull when he smiled, but his color had come back, his voice stronger, his laughter more certain. Every morning he sat by the window with his sketchbook tracing the light as it shifted across the floorboards. The first thing he drew after surgery wasn't a face or a tree. It was a bridge, half shadow, half sun. His mother kept that one taped to the fridge right next to an old medical bill marked Denied. Funny, isn't it? She said one afternoon, pointing at it. That letter used to scare me more than anything. Now it just reminds me how far we've come. Eli grinned. Guess we built our own bridge. At the hospital, Dr. McKinnon finished typing his final report on Eli's case. He paused at the line that asked for outcome. After a moment, he wrote, Patient survived. Family transformed. He leaned back in his chair, thinking of how many others never got this chance. The system still punished those who couldn't pay. He'd spent his whole career trying to fix bodies, but it was the machinery outside the hospital walls that needed the real surgery. A knock interrupted his thoughts. Anna stepped in with a coffee. You'll like this, she said, handing him her phone. On it was a photo Eli standing outside the community center teaching a small group of kids how to draw. The caption read, Art for Hope, led by Eli Tanner, 16. McKinnon smiled, the kind of smile that comes from somewhere deep and tired. You know, he said that boy might save more people than I ever could. Outside, the air was bright, the wind gentle. Somewhere down the street, church bells began to ring slow, steady, and full of promise. Eli lifted his sketchbook, drawing not monsters this time, not scars or fear, but a window, open sunlight pouring through. The mural took Eli 3 weeks to finish. Every morning before school and every evening after dinner, he stood in the courtyard behind Riverside high brush in hand, paint-stained sleeves rolled to his elbows. At first, it was just a wall, cracked, forgotten. Water-streaked from decades of neglect. But slowly, line by line, color by color, it began to breathe. At the center grew a massive oak tree. Its branches stretched wide, filled with gold and copper leaves. But the real story lived underground in the roots. Thick, knotted, tangled things that twisted deep into the concrete. From afar, they looked like veins. Up close, words were written along them in careful brushstrokes. Listen to your body. Ask for help. Don't wait. Students stopped to watch. Some whispered. Others helped fill in the colors. Even teachers came out during lunch pretending to tidy up while stealing glances. On the day of the unveiling, the whole town gathered. The principal gave a speech about resilience and community, but no one listened much. They were looking at the boy beside the mural, the one they used to call a monster. Eli stood at the microphone a little awkward, his hands shaking slightly. The crowd hushed. He took a breath. When I was younger, he began, I thought sickness only happened when something hurt, but I learned that not all pain makes noise. Some of it grows quietly until one day you can't ignore it anymore. He paused, eyes drifting to the mural behind him. I used to draw trees without light. I guess I thought that's what I was, something that wasn't supposed to be seen, but people showed me I was wrong. Doctors, strangers, even those who just listened. So this wall, it's not about what I lost. It's about what I found. A soft breeze lifted his hair. If you see this, I hope you remember, go to your checkups even when you feel fine. Ask questions. Care about yourself before it's too late. For a moment, the courtyard was completely still. Then, applause not loud, not rushed, but full. At the back of the crowd, Dr. McKinnon stood with Anna. His hands were clasped behind his back, his eyes glistening. Seems he built his own kind of medicine, Anna said quietly. McKinnon smiled. The kind that doesn't need a prescription. And under the bright Ohio sky, the oak tree on the wall shimmered as if alive, its roots whispering the same quiet truth that had saved him. Don't wait. 6 months later, Chicago was humming under a different kind of light. Downtown streets glowed with the pulse of traffic, the rhythm of late-night conversations, the small hum of a city that never stopped believing in itself. In the middle of it all, inside the glass walls of the Anderson Art Museum, people gathered for an exhibition titled Faces of Resilience. The gallery was quiet except for the soft shuffle of footsteps on polished floors. Each painting told a story. A burn survivor smiling through a haze of past pain. A child learning to walk again. A nurse holding the hand of a stranger. But in the center of the room, under a halo of warm light, hung a massive canvas. The plaque read, Foundations, by Eli Miller. It was a reimagining of his mural, the same oak tree, the same roots, but painted on rough canvas instead of concrete. The roots glowed brighter here, stretching out into open space, no longer buried. In the corner, he had written a single phrase in white paint, inspired by early detection and access for all. Dr. McKinnon stood at the back, his cane resting beside him. He hadn't planned to speak, but when the curator asked, he couldn't refuse. He stepped forward, adjusting the microphone. When I first met Eli, he began, I thought I was coming to heal a boy's face, but I ended up watching him heal a part of me I didn't know was broken. A few people smiled. Some nodded. He continued, voice steadier now. Medicine fixes bodies, but compassion fixes systems. And sometimes the most powerful thing a doctor can do is listen. He turned toward the painting, his reflection faint in the glass. There are kids across this country who never make it to surgery, not because their conditions are rare, but because their parents can't afford to ask for help. We can do better. We have to. The audience clapped quietly at first, then louder, not for him, but for what the art stood for. In the corner of the room, Anna watched the moment unfold, tears catching in the light. For the first time, hope didn't feel like charity. It felt like change. The classroom smelled faintly of acrylic paint and chalk dust. Sunlight spilled across the tables where paper brushes and crayons lay scattered like confetti after a small celebration. On the wall, a hand-painted sign read, Art for Hope. Instructor Eli Miller. Eli stood by the window sleeves rolled up, watching as half a dozen kids dipped brushes into jars of color. Some were missing hair from chemotherapy. Others wore hearing aids or braces that glinted when they smiled. But in here, no one stared and no one hid. Okay, Eli said, clapping his hands softly. Today, we're not painting faces, we're painting feelings. A little boy frowned. How do you paint a feeling? Eli smiled. You don't. You let it paint you first. He handed the boy a sheet of paper. Close your eyes. Think about something that hurts. And then when you open them, use any color that feels lighter. The boy nodded and dipped his brush in bright yellow. Around the room, colors began to bloom blue. For fear red, for courage, green, for peace. Anna Carter leaned against the doorway, watching. "You did it," she said softly. Eli turned. Did. What turned healing into something people can touch. He laughed, a sound that filled the quiet space easily now. "Guess I learned from the best." She smiled. "No, Eli, you became the best." He moved to the whiteboard and wrote slowly, in bold strokes, "You are more than what they see." The children read it aloud, their voices overlapping an uneven rhythm like music made from different hearts finding the same beat. And, for the first time, Eli felt like every moment of pain had led exactly here. The evening air in Riverside was gentle, carrying the scent of wet grass and lilacs from the neighbor's yard. The old oak tree behind the miller's house had grown thick over the years, its branches spreading wide enough to hold both shade and memory. Beneath it, a wooden bench faced the fading sun. Sarah sat with a glass of lemonade, the ice melted the drink forgotten. Beside her, Eli leaned back, sketchbook balanced on his knees. The light caught his face, the faint traces of scars visible only when he turned a certain way. They no longer defined him. They just told the truth. "Do you ever think about the hospital?" Sarah asked. Eli shrugged, drawing slow lines across the paper. "Sometimes. Not the pain part, though. Just the voices, the beeping, the way it all sounded like the world holding its breath." She smiled softly. "And now it sounds like breathing again." He flipped the page and wrote 2 words at the top, "Start here." Sarah leaned closer. "That's new." He nodded. "It's for a series I want to paint, about beginnings, how people think healing is the end of something, but really it's just where things finally start." The wind rustled the oak leaves above them. Somewhere in the distance, a train horn echoed, not haunting this time, but steady alive. Narration flowed gently through the quiet. In every town there's a house at the end of a road where someone still waits for answers, for help, for hope. And maybe if they hear this story, they'll remember the body doesn't stay silent forever. Eli closed the sketchbook and looked toward the horizon. "You know, Mom, he said we never did fix the porch light." Sarah chuckled. "Maybe we don't need to anymore. We've got enough light out here. The camera, if there were one, would pull back then, fading on the image of mother and son beneath the oak tree, the pages of the sketchbook fluttering in the wind like wings." If you're listening, the narrator whispers, "Go get that checkup. Ask the question. Because love isn't just caring for others, it's caring enough to stay." And then silence, except for the heartbeat of summer. Every heartbeat is a story, even the quiet ones we never notice. Somewhere tonight, a mother still waits in a hospital hallway, counting the seconds between machine beeps. Somewhere, a child still wonders if his pain is worth someone's attention. If the boy they called Monster has taught us anything, it's this: healing isn't just what doctors do. It's what we choose, when we listen, when we care, when we refuse to look away. So, before this story fades, take a moment. Call someone you love. Schedule that checkup you've been putting off. Tell your story, because silence never saved anyone. And if this story reached you, share it forward. Someone out there might need to know that they're not alone, that being seen is the first step to being healed.